Hi, I'm Tyler Fultz. I'm a nuclear engineer with a little over 10 years of experience in the commercial nuclear power industry. From engineering to operations to emergency response. I don't claim to know everything there is nuclear, but I can certainly share some knowledge. Today we're going to be looking at one of Kurzgesagt's videos called How a Nuclear War Will Start, Minute by Minute. I think this one's going to be pretty intense.
Mr. President,
Am I the president?
Nuclear missiles will strike our country in 14 minutes. I know it's your first day in office, so I'm going to walk you through it, but you're the only one who can authorize our nuclear retaliation in response, and you've only got a few minutes to make a decision.
Wow. And of course, first day in office. What's interesting is my first day at work, we were actually doing a major site evaluation by our regulators, and that was my first day as an engineer, and talking to the regulators about, hey, what sort of things are you doing to ensure the long-term safety of this equipment? It was a challenge that a lot of nuclear plants are facing with just aging equipment, and it actually went pretty easy. Everyone was super open and talked about what the plans were, and of course I was heavily shadowed and mentored by some individuals there to help me out, but yeah, obviously nothing compared to starting a nuclear war or defending against a nuclear war. It's funny how these first days can always be something crazy, but I couldn't imagine this sort of thing. And 14 minutes. So these countries, not a whole lot of time to react in this case. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, it would have been even worse. I think if missiles were deployed on Cuba and then launched towards the United States, that cuts it down to 1 to 2 minutes. So you might not even have 14 minutes, depending on the scenario.
As you know, tensions have escalated rapidly in the past
Turanian Union and the Duckist Empire. Which one am I?
few days. Today's Joint Allied Aerial Defense exercise
Okay, so
began
I'm the one
just
on the
minutes
left.
before we detected the launch. A simple misunderstanding, maybe. We assume the sudden attack is meant to neutralize as many of our nuclear forces as possible. But that doesn't matter now. Missiles are in the air.
They have duck faces. Okay, I appreciate the lightheartedness for something as serious as nuclear war. I like it.
And we can't shoot all of them down. Why? Because intercontinental ballistic missiles are basically rockets launched into space before re-entering the atmosphere over their target and releasing many different warheads. Higher and faster than anything you can send after them.
Well, can we, do we have anything deployed that can intercept them before they get to their dispersal phase? Did we invest in the Star Wars SDI program with satellite-guided lasers or something to get them before they split like that? I'm thinking no, because no one did in real life.
We need to get you to the bunker.
Wow, that's cool.
Here's what we know. 4 minutes ago, our new infrared monitoring satellites detected 112 bursts consistent with ICBM launches from the enemy's inner territories. For some reason, only 20 of their 80 underground nuclear silos seem to have fired.
So one thing I would ask this guy right away is, do we have any other ways of ascertaining that they launched? Because there have been some false alarms in the past that almost led to nuclear war. So we want to make sure this is a real threat. We also want to make sure this isn't part of some cyber terrorism or anything like that to fake that a nuclear attack is imminent just to get us to counterattack and us be the ones to start a real nuclear war. By the way, full disclosure, no military background, no political background, a lot of nuclear engineering background, so please don't don't take what I say in terms of what to do as the right thing to do. Hey, please feel free to play along in this scenario in the comment section, criticizing my every move as we take part in this little choose your own adventure video for nuclear war.
So we suspect most of them were transporter erector launchers.
Okay.
You know, trucks with big missiles on them. It's unclear why they didn't use all their silos. They might just not work after more than 30 years, or they might be keeping them in reserve. The fog of war is keeping many things unclear.
It's possible they didn't work but yeah, silo missiles would be vulnerable to a retaliatory strike. I'm curious to know what the what other kind of weapons these guys have. If they have subs that are nuclear capable, because that can give you a secondary strike, because those you wouldn't know where they are.
Aerospace Command thinks the ICBMs are targeting our nuclear command centers, silos, and major Air Force and Navy bases, ending this war before we have a chance to act. The enemy's strategic doctrine prioritizes military targets and our nuclear weapon systems, but their secondary targets are our industry and infrastructure, all refineries, power stations, and deep water ports.
Oh no, they're attacking our nuclear power plants. Yeah, nuclear power plants are tough, but as far as surviving a direct hit with a nuclear weapon, no. Not much can survive a direct hit with anything. And by the way, the fallout from having an exposed nuclear reactor core, compared to the effect of the nuclear bomb going off, it's going to be minimal.
All located near or in major population centers. We won't know the exact casualty count for a few weeks. Deaths from the blast and burns may be a few million today. It's morning rush hour, and there's not much to be done for people stuck in traffic.
That's true. The deaths would be, the highest amount of deaths would be from the initial strike.
People in major metro areas can't really evacuate, but emergency broadcasts are being sent out to shelter in place and away from windows. Radiation exposure from attacked population centers is highly dependent on the weather over the next week.
True.
We might be looking at dozens of millions of deaths by the end of the month.
In fact, dozens of millions of deaths by the end of the month. I don't know how big these fictional countries are, but that actually sounds kind of low if you're going to compare that to like the effects of a Cold War, the Cold War type scenario. Depending on how populated these cities are, just the direct attacks from the fireballs, and also completely demolishing the medical infrastructure, you're going to have a lot of injured people that can't even get help. So I wouldn't be surprised if it can get into the hundreds of millions range. And if it's just two countries, one thing, but if it escalates to an even more global one with global nuclear allies, this looks like a war between two countries, but you could hit billions just in the initial attack, or at the very least, hundreds of millions. And the majority of the damage is going to be right away with the initial blasts.
For the next few minutes, we can still respond, but you need to decide.
Well, when I paused, looking at this guy's face, yes, my noble and trusted military advisor here. If it's real, attack the rest of their military assets and obviously focus on doing what we can to intercept these missiles. I don't know if our anti-missile technology is such that we can stop the ICBMs before they can split. It would involve a little bit of sci-fi, so probably not, but focus on defense and then attack their remaining silos and other military assets so they don't hit us with even more. I can feel everyone saying how much of a terrible idea that is. Obviously, I couldn't imagine making a decision like this in real life, but you have to make a decision.
We've got 1,500 warheads across our silos, bombers, and submarines. The 400 in silos need to be launched now before they get taken out. 46 nuclear-capable bombers on high alert can be ready to take off in 2 minutes, though we need to transmit the order right away to get them out of the blast radius if you want to consider using them. Of our 40 nuclear submarines, 5 are presently at sea. While they're submerged, they're undetectable, so that's our backup for a nuclear retaliation if we lose our silos and bombers. We could try to use them to bomb out their remaining silo fields before they can launch them. The sooner you commit to it, the better the chance we have of preventing a further exchange after our retaliation.
Yeah, just verify it's legitimate first, but go ahead and take them out. Obviously, as my trusted military advisor, hopefully he had all of his personnel use diverse indications to verify this is a real nuclear attack and not a bug with one particular system. But this is a tense scenario that does require a response. I do not envy anyone who would have to make a decision like this in real life.
Updates. We have radar confirmation that the enemy ICBMs have completed their burn and deployed their warheads.
Okay, yeah, it's definitely legitimate. if you could see them on radar, satellites, they also saw the thermal.
Our best guess is that each missile will deploy at least 6 re-entry vehicles, about 600 in total, which is the part that carries a warhead back into the atmosphere during its terminal descent onto the target, and with many more decoys on top of that, inflatable balloons meant to waste any anti-missiles.
What? I've never heard of those. I've heard of decoys, and but didn't know about little balloons to block anti-missiles. Wow. Is this real? Someone let me know about this. Like I said, not a military person, but that I've heard of balloons designed to block like dive bombers that were used, say, like during World War I, so that they like get caught in the cable and stuff when they swoop down for an attack. But I haven't heard of like Cold War era anti-missile balloons. That's something.
We're now tracking nearly 4,000 potential targets. Our anti-ballistic missiles have been launched and will begin their intercept in another minute. We'll do our best to protect the capital, although there really is no defense. Wait, confirming a partial radar blackout.
What's that? Oh, he's got a timeline on his Apple Watch.
Our systems seem to be glitchy. The enemy must have anticipated we'd launch our interceptors and pre-detonated a few warheads at high altitude. That ionizes the atmosphere and creates radar interference. Our interceptors should still operate okay. They've had a 55% success rate in tests, but never with this many decoys or...
55%, right? That actually sounds decently good. I've heard numbers that were lower, but it's been a while since I've looked at these sort of things, so maybe they've gotten better.
Radar interference this intense. We might shoot down 50 objects, but there's no guarantee they're warheads. It looks like most bombs are going to get through. This is our last chance to counterattack. We're out of time.
Why hasn't he done anything yet? I think they're just trying to show how tense this situation is for the purpose of this video, and how impossible of a decision this would be to basically to escalate a nuclear war.
Our silo launch sequence takes 5 minutes. We have to transmit and confirm a launch order, and the missile needs time to clear the blast radius of the incoming bomb.
That's true.
This is a lot to take in, but the war plan is made. You just need to enter the launch authorization codes and push this button to transmit them.
Oh, I hope that's the right button. I know I'm sure there are pre-planned targets, like including where we think their missile silos are, but I think there I would imagine are varying levels of a retaliatory strike. One other thing I'll point out is, earlier they mentioned about hitting the missile silos with a nuclear missile on it. So a incoming nuclear missile hitting that target, it's not going to be 2 nuclear detonations. It's going to be 1 from that inbound missile, and it's not going to set off a nuclear chain reaction in the second one. It would just destroy that missile. Another thing, though, is most nuclear attacks are airbursts. Depending on these silos and how fortified they are, if the silo is kept shut, it's possible the silo could survive. I mean, after all, 2 countries that are at war with each other, I don't know if they would know the precise locations of these silos, and usually you'd go with an airburst because that causes more immediate damage compared to the missile that would actually hit the ground. But that would depend on the type of silo.
You can't do anything else to save more of our people. If you don't launch now, then this war will be over before it even begins. You understand? This is our one chance, right?
This guy.
The effect? Enemy civilian casualties are hard to estimate, but should be similar to ours. A few million right away, perhaps a few tens of million by the end of the month. The total...
Again, it looks like they're showing the tens of millions are from radiation poisoning. While the radiation poisoning is going to be horrific. It's going to make Chernobyl look like nothing just because of the scope of this war. It's going to be the initial blasts are going to kill people right away, but people just succumbing to their injuries and like complete disruption of infrastructure. I mean, some people are just going to starve. No access to food. The whole area has been taken out. The point is, the radiation itself, while horrific, and people are going to die in horrific ways from this, the majority of the deaths are going to come from the effects of just blowing up a lot of stuff. If these weren't nuclear weapons, let's say these were both sides using satellite mass drivers dropping asteroids of similar destructive force to nuclear bombs. These have to be pretty small asteroids, considering asteroid impacts generally do a lot more damage than nuclear bombs. But anyway, deaths are going to be similar. It's just the destructive force from the blast, the fireball, that's going to do the majority of damage, including the delayed deaths just due to people not being able to get the healthcare they need because the entire country is destroyed.
Fallout from their attacks and ours might trigger a nuclear winter, potentially killing billions around the world, but that might happen even if we don't retaliate.
Okay, nuclear winter. I believe this myth came about in the 1980s, even with great scientists such as Carl Sagan putting these out. So yes, nuclear war is horrific, and we do not want to stress test this at all. But nuclear winter has been somewhat exaggerated by extrapolations from things like asteroid impacts and volcanic eruptions. So asteroid impacts, like the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs, far more destructive than nuclear weapons. That's not really an apt comparison. Volcanic eruptions, a bit closer. In fact, the yield from this nuclear war is larger than a lot of even really big volcanic eruptions, just because you're adding up so many nuclear detonations going off in a very short period of time. But volcanoes release a lot of sulfur dioxide into the upper atmosphere, which has a tendency to linger around for longer compared to nuclear detonations. It's mainly smoke, and it's going to start fires, horrific forest fires, the worst the world's ever seen, I'm sure. But there were fires I know Canada and Australia that happened a few years to decades ago that didn't really cause any lasting upper atmosphere effects. So yes, this will cause some effect, but for it to be this world-ending, killing billions of people scenario, no, I don't see that happening. It was a conservative overestimate that was done in back in the 1980s. I can understand why something like that you would overestimate, just to show how horrific nuclear war is. This is something it would still be by far the most horrific thing humanity has ever caused or even witnessed. It's not an extinction level event.
I'm sure you have questions, but you have to give orders without expecting answers right now.
That is a thing. I know. So nothing like this. Nothing like this. But there are times that in, say, a nuclear control room, or really any job, any important position of power, and that kind of includes running a nuclear control room, that you do need to make some decisions without having all of the information. Fortunately, in a nuclear control room, the usual conservative action is to order an emergency shutdown of the reactor, and that puts everything in a safe condition. Whereas this decision right here, it's going to involve horrific deaths, and it feels like a losing decision either way. But with a credible threat, you're going to want to prevent them from launching even more nukes in your country, take out their next wave of nuclear weapons before they can use it against you or anywhere else. They've already proven to be a nuclear threat. Please tell me I'm wrong in the comments.
Attack of this scale, there's no guarantee communications or assets will be intact in a few minutes. We're out of time. We need a decision, sir. Can we launch?
That's a bit silly.
Nuclear wars aren't regular wars. They only last minutes, and in times of crisis, small conflicts can rapidly spiral out of control. Anything from small communication lags to sensor errors to just uncertainty in the fog of war
what I talked about
no
earlier.
leader will ever have a complete idea of what's happening as a crisis unfolds.
That's why you need to use diverse indications to see if this thing is real before you think about counterattacking.
When tensions are high, accidents or misunderstandings can steer leaders, even those with good intentions, to launch a nuclear attack. Confused and with incomplete information, a single person, yes, it's really just one single person who decides, can literally make civilization-ending decisions, killing hundreds of millions of people in the time it takes to watch a YouTube video.
Yeah, they said
This
hundreds of
story
millions.
is fiction, but the world came very close to this several times. In 1995, Russian radar detected a submarine-launched missile, and their nuclear forces went on full alert, except it was actually a scientific rocket to study auroras. In 1979, US computers reported a full-scale Soviet attack with only minutes to respond, except it was a training tape being incorrectly loaded into a computer.
Have to verify
In
it.
1983, the Soviet satellite alert system showed 5 ICBMs launched from the US, but it was a false alarm caused by sunlight reflected on clouds. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, a Soviet submarine with no contact to Moscow for several days concluded that nuclear war had begun and decided to launch a nuclear torpedo.
Whoa.
Luckily, the authorization of 3 officers was required. One of them, Vasily Arshipov, opposed it. But what if he hadn't? Any safeguard can fail, no matter how carefully designed it might be. And decisions are being made right now to build new weapons and missile systems that commit the world to another century of nuclear stalemate, complicated further by China's emergence as a new nuclear superpower. Simply accepting that the existence of nuclear weapons is inevitable might mean their use is inevitable. But the world doesn't have to be this way. Even incremental steps taking apart one bomb at a time will eventually result in a world with none. During the Cold War, the world had over 70,000 nuclear weapons. Through arms reduction treaties, that number is now about 12,500. Progress is not guaranteed, but it's also not impossible. Governments and militaries are not separate from their nations, they're part of them, just like you. You have the power to make demands of your leaders, and often this begins with just being aware of an issue.
True.
If you want to learn more, we've compiled a number of resources for you in the video description and our sources.
This sort of reminds me of another video that I did a reaction to with Kurzgesagt on just what actually happens to a city if you nuke it and all the horrific devastation it would cause. So this is magnified up to full-scale war in this video. I don't think nuclear weapons are going to go away anytime soon. After all, if you agree to get rid of them, both sides are going to point fingers and say, you first. So I don't see the numbers going down to 0 anytime soon, but I don't claim to be an expert on politics. Hey, if you're interested in peaceful uses of nuclear technology, please join me on a journey to a clean nuclear energy future by liking, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.